And we're live. Hello, everyone. We are Wealth Building Wednesday with Kate and Sheila, and today we're going to be talking about debt detox. We're going to get right into it with our content, which is debt payoff strategies, the true cost of your debt, and good versus bad debt. Kate's going to be talking about it because this is Kate's specialty is finance. But first, we need to offer
the disclaimer. Yes. And prior to this, I just want to say I've been coming on as Money EQ coach, and I have been working on rebranding to Her Money Empowered. Does that mean I won't work with men? No. but I find mostly I've been working with women, and so being that women have specific issues in their strategic planning for wealth building, I decided to make that shift. So with that, this presentation, all correspondence from me, information provided by Her Money Empowered are just that information, thoughts, and ideas shared. Before you make any financial, tax, or legal decisions, please contact your advisor per your specific situation.
awesome. All right. So we're going to get into the pretty much the first topic, which is your debt payoff. And this is where, Kate, you're going to really kind of hyper focus in on this strategy, correct?
Yes. I find that people hear a lot of different things and ask a lot of questions about different debt payoff strategies. And it's one of those topics that if you Google it, you're going to get everything from everybody and their cousin with all sorts of different definitions, all sorts of different ideas, and this is best and don't do that, and all of these different things. So what I wanted to do was spend a little bit of time and talk through a couple of the options, okay? Obviously, you're going to have, we're going to talk through going through snowball versus avalanche, consolidation, counseling, settlement, and bankruptcy. But first, what I want to do is just quickly share a few facts because debt for people is a burden, right? There's no other way to put it. It's a weight on your shoulders. Everybody's uncomfortable talking about it. It's not a topic that you feel great about, right? So just know a couple of things here. And all of these facts that I'm going to share, there's 3, are from the Federal Reserve Bank. So they are not just out there. It's on the internet. It must be true. They are true. Okay. So first, is credit card debt increased by 50 billion, that's with a B, in the fourth quarter of last year.
Oh,
okay. 50 billion. So let that sink in a little bit just for a second, right? 50 billion increased by 50 billion in just the last quarter.
Debt.
Yes. Debt. Credit card debt.
Oh,
yes. So if you have credit card debt, clearly you are not alone in this, right? So I bring that up because people are often shy, really don't want to talk about it. But there are solutions for it, right? So fact number 2 is 1 in 5 or 22% of people out there in the United States carry at least $10,000 in credit card debt and up to 20. Okay. So 22% of the American public has credit card debt of $10,000 to $20,000 that they carry.
And
right?
And if you watched our previous video, a lot of times it's that emergency fund that they use that they're not supposed to use, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that, if you fall in that bucket, you're not alone, right? And 5% of the American public has more than $30,000 in debt.
Wow.
Okay. So, yeah. So, and that's all from the Federal Reserve Bank numbers as of February this year. So current statistics for you. So know that you're not alone. Okay. Now, Americans as a whole, are you ready for this number? And I know I said I had 3 facts, but this one is crazy. But this is inclusive of all debt. Okay. So Americans as a whole have $1.13 trillion in debt. That's a lot. That is a whole
Well, at
lot
least
of
the
money.
government's beat us in the debt rate.
Right. Well, not getting into politics on this one, but but yeah, so you can see that clearly if you carry credit card debt, you are not alone.
Right.
You are not alone, right?
Yep.
So the reason why I wanted to share that is clearly you're not alone, and there are solutions, there are ways out of this debt. Now, everybody has probably heard snowball versus avalanche, right? So I want to take a little bit of time on that. Working through the snowball versus avalanche, it's two different methods on how to pay down your debt. The snowball focuses on building momentum. So you start with the smallest debt that you have first. And then as you pay that off, don't close the account, right? If it's a credit card, don't close the account. We talked about that before, but as you pay off credit cards, the snowball, if you start with the smallest balance, pay that off first, then you get an early win and you get the hit of dopamine and feel fabulous and moving forward, right? So you're inspired to continue on.
Exactly.
Now, I prefer the avalanche for people because what the avalanche does is it focuses on paying off the highest interest rate debt first. So ultimately, in the long run, you're going to pay out less to the credit card companies or whatever it is, right? I'm focusing mostly on credit card companies today.
Right.
So you start with you list out all of your balances and what the interest rate is. And on my sheets that I provide for clients, there's a spot to put your monthly payment and when it's due and all of that stuff. Anyway, so you start with the highest interest rate because over time, you're going to pay it off faster and pay less in interest versus the snowball method where you're just paying off the smallest balance first. So just want to reiterate, I am a proponent of the avalanche because ultimately you are paying off less. You're paying out less to pay off your debt.
Yep.
Hopefully that all makes sense.
No, you're basically paying the highest, right?
Yep, the highest interest rate first,
Which
and then you move along.
Which over long term, if you were paying it long term, you'd pay more.
Correct.
If you pay it off quicker at the top, then you're going to pay less money overall.
Right.
So to me, that makes perfect sense, and I think it would to everybody else.
Well, want to make sure because you get throw things out there, and I'm sure everybody's heard snowball versus avalanche, blah 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 blah. I personally feel like unless you need the quick win, right, that you should take the path where you're going to gain the most from it personally.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the different options beyond that, which is really that's handling it on your own, right? I work with clients to set those strategies up. I calculate out the numbers, all of that fun stuff. But consolidation is really, it's about making a list of all of your debts and going out there and getting one loan to pay all of it off at once, right? So it makes sense. It is something that you're going to have to apply for. The goal of it is ultimately to go out and look at your different options. And ultimately, you want it to benefit you in making it a simpler thing to do, right? To pay off one payment, consolidating it all, versus having a whole bunch of different payments you got to keep track of. Hopefully, the goal would be to get a lower interest rate in this as well when you're going out. And you need to shop it around. So you got to have a list of your debts and your rates and all of that. And it takes some figuring. There are companies that can help you do it. However, they tack on a fee.
Of course.
Right? So, yeah. So, I mean, and obviously everybody deserves to be paid for what they do, right? However, when this is something that you can do yourself fairly simply, with a little guidance, maybe it's definitely, you know, an option to take a look at putting a list together, go talk. And I am a big proponent of credit unions. They are way more willing to work with you and give you better rates than any bank is going to do. So
I agree.
there's my
I
2 cents on that.
I very much agree. We moved everything to a credit union. It's much better.
Yeah.
So
Now, pitfalls of working through consolidation could be, one, it doesn't really address the underlying issue of how you accumulated all of that debt in the first place. So it's something where, you know, if you're going to get a consolidation loan, whether it's consolidating all onto a credit card and surfing, and that's a whole other thing, or going to a credit union, the issue can then be, well, often they will require you to pay off the credit cards and close them, which that can hit your credit, other issue. But also it can provide a false sense of security for you that debt has been consolidated. And then you feel like, yeah, okay, I got to win. And be careful not to go out and reaccumulate, right? And then depending on your credit worthiness, when you apply for this consolidation, you may end up paying a higher interest rate as a whole. So it's very important to know where you are and what you've got going on when you go out and look at the options for that. Okay. Now, obviously, with all of these different things, you have to know what you've got, right? So you need to make a list of what your debts are, what the interest rates are, that sort of thing. And that's really step one, right? You don't know, how do you fix where you're at and measure it if you don't know where you're starting from? So I will say that 1,000 times, no matter what the topic is, whether it's putting together, you know, taking your budget to a strategy or paying down debt, you have to
create a list.
Make the list. You got to identify what you've got. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, you got to see it. We don't want to, but we have to. We have to see it in order to know how to attack it, right?
100%. Absolutely. And then credit counseling really works in a little bit of a different way. It's very similar. They will work with you through consolidating if that's to benefit you. But what they really want to do is get to know you. So if you're working through a credit counselor, they will typically, I don't know where Tenley came from, but they will typically sit down and talk to you about, how did you accumulate this debt? Was there a medical emergency or whatever? How did you build this debt? And then they'll take a look at absolutely everything, your credit history, your income, your expenses, you know, all of it, to work with you and put together a debt management plan is what they will typically call it. And the goal is for them to make it specific to you. Now, with this, sometimes they will go and negotiate with creditors on your behalf. Not always will they do that. Some people, I mean, I work with people to put together a debt management plan, but I do not negotiate on your behalf. I teach you how to do it for yourself. They do often provide accountability, which I do that as well. It is what it is, right? So ultimately, though, they're going to want to go through everything, and really they aren't looking at your whole financial picture to build wealth. They are just looking at how to get out of debt, right?
To get it paid off and to not go back into it, right? Like, because that's the ultimate goal, is to pay it off and not go back into it.
100%.
Not just to pay it off.
100%.
Right?
Correct. Now, sometimes they will do the consolidation for you, and they sort of set it up differently, and you can make payments to them, and then they make the payments for you. The trick with this and the downfall with this is that it will show up on your credit report as managed by a credit counseling agency, which dings your credit. And if you're going to get a loan or anything in the future, that's going to show up on there. And then that's going to be a cause for pause, right? So they're going to take an extra look at that and probably require some additional documentation on what you had, which paid off, who the whole
But the other side of that though is if you, I mean, you know what? If if it sits on there, it shows that you attempted to get the debt under
Yes.
control. And the fact of the matter is if you don't do something like this,
Mm-hmm.
your credit will be much more screwed up, worse, and in more
But
areas.
well, I mean, all I'm saying is that you can work through this yourself. You can call and negotiate for yourself, and then you don't get those dings, right?
Gotcha. I
Um,
gotcha.
that's my point. I'm not saying don't do it at all. I'm
I,
saying, that this is something where you can, for your own benefit, call and make,
I understand.
negotiations happen, that sort of thing.
I gotcha.
This also tends to be where predatory practices can come into play a little bit. There are scams out there and they are waiting for you. So do your due diligence if you're going to use a credit counseling agency to help you negotiate, pay down debt, that whole kit and caboodle.
So are
Um,
you saying that there are predatory practices by certain counseling
oh,
that are out there?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so I guess how would they is there a place to find, I'm sorry, I'm coming up with all these questions in my head at the same time. So where would they go to find basically a list of good credit counseling people or
That
companies?
is a great question. I would start with the Better Business Bureau or Chamber of Commerce and that sort of thing. See if you can get referrals to them, because it's simply because it is a huge predatory market. They will charge outlandish fees. They sometimes will set it up so that you pay them. It goes into a trust, and then I mean it's over my years, I've seen these companies where they've taken people's money. It's been in the trust. It's been spent on something else. Yeah, I mean, it's just there's opportunity there for there to be issues. So
So basically
definitely,
they
I
should be
would.
reaching out to somebody who's already kind of gone through it
Yeah,
and had a good experience with it, or like you said, go to a Better Business Bureau to
yeah,
try and see if someone, to see if they can find somebody on there that has a
yeah,
good rating.
yeah. If you need to go that route,
Okay. All right.
I mean,
Yep.
if
Ideally, you would want to do it. You
ideally
want
you
to do
don't want
this
to go
on
that
your
route,
own.
right? You
Okay.
can handle it. I mean, it's managing your debt and paying off debt is that D word, discipline, right? I mean, it's just one of those things. You need to take the initiative, know that you're going to be better for it in the future,
Exactly.
stick to your guns, figure it out,
Yep.
and go forward, right? And it is a process. I mean, I'm going to venture to guess that all of your debt didn't happen in one night. Neither
Right.
is it all going to be paid off in one night, right?
Exactly. Yep.
So it is one of those things.
Yep.
The next one is settlement, which is different from bankruptcy. We'll get to that. But settlement is a situation where they take a list of all of your debts, your expenses, your income, all of that, like we talked about every time, right? For each one. And then the settlement company will go negotiate with your creditors on your behalf. They may get a structured agreement to pay it down or to reduce the debt if paid in full, that sort of thing. And ultimately, the goal is they're set up to really work on your behalf, do all of the digging and nitty gritty work for you, right? Now, in that, you're going to pay them to do that. Right? They're not going to negotiate on your behalf for free. They're not going to collect everything and pay it all off for you for free. There's additional fees. So it tends to be kind of expensive. And I personally feel like a debt settlement is the last resort before a bankruptcy, right? I mean, if you are in that bad of a situation, there just is very dim light at the end of the tunnel, then this is something to consider. It's oftentimes they will negotiate for a balance reduction. Understand that's going to hit your credit report, that you are paying that whole balance. I mean, all of it. It just kind of, it creates a mess. It's just one step below filing for bankruptcy, right? So
Right.
there are all sorts of potential for falling off the wagon on this too. They will automatically close your accounts. They will it just is a pretty big hit, right? It's not as bad as bankruptcy hit, but it's a pretty big hit, and it can be pretty expensive. Also, not all creditors will agree to set up a payment plan or forgive some debt and that sort of thing. So the situation that you're in may or may not warrant this. It may not even do you any good to approach someone to help you with settlement. Which, by the way, you also can do this. I mean, you're not going to probably get lower balances negotiated, but you can absolutely get payment plans set up, negotiate lower interest rates, that sort of thing. So I really feel like this is one of the last resorts. And it will definitely ding your credit score for sure. No question.
Now, I know that there are creditors that, so when you talk about settlement, I know that there are bills because I've had this experience. Yes, I was in debt at one time and, had bad credit and all that.
Yeah.
So I remember a time where I would get a bill from a creditor that would say, proposed settlement amount. And so I didn't necessarily need to go and do that. They sent me something that stated what they would settle at. I do know that it would ding my credit. Like, I do
Yes.
know that. But they offered it to me. So,
That was a while ago.
so they don't do that anymore.
Well, I wouldn't say never. I just haven't seen it in years.
Okay. And then second to that, so when you say ding somebody's credit, obviously it's not like bankruptcy where it dings your credit for like 7 years.
Right.
So like if somebody were to do a settlement type thing, do you know the length of time that would remain on their credit report?
Off the top of my head, no, but I know that a bankruptcy is on there for 7 years. So if you have a settlement, I'm going to guess that it's something close to that.
Okay.
5 to 7 years probably on there.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's no getting that off until it goes off. Like if there's an error on your credit report, you can challenge that. You can challenge things on your credit report, right? So, but that you cannot. That is a sticker and it will stick. Just like a speeding ticket sticks to your points, right?
Right.
They're not going away, right? So yeah. So also with the settlement, people often think, okay, well, if I do a settlement and I have a company working with that is helping me do this and go through the process of this, then I'll stop getting these collection calls and all that stuff. And that's not the case. They will still call you. And it's, so that, because sometimes people think, oh, that's a benefit. Then I won't continue to get these calls and so on and so forth. But that they will continue to call you until a settlement is made or not made, right? There's no guarantee.
Right.
Okay. So moving on to bankruptcy. There's a couple different kinds of bankruptcy. And the first thing that I would say is contact an attorney. I am not that person who this is all they do, right? You do not want an attorney who typically is an estate planning attorney working on your bankruptcy for you. It's two different areas of law, and they will know their ins and outs, right? So, and they'll have best practices. They'll know what's going on. They'll know how the process works. It's just in your best interest. It's like you're not going to take a Ferrari to a GM dealership to get it repaired. You're just not. right? So go the route that is required and find a good bankruptcy attorney if this is where you're at. Okay. So again, they will sit down and take stock of everything, income, expenses, all of that good stuff. um, they will work with you to figure out what chapter to file. Most people have heard of Chapter 7, which is a liquidation bankruptcy, which means that they can there will be a trustee assigned, and that person will liquidate assets and that sort of thing to pay off your debts. Um, this will also include settlement, negotiation, all sorts of stuff. What it does not do is get you out of paying everything all the time, right? So often people think, well, if I just file bankruptcy, I'll have to give up some assets and I'll be clear and then I'm good to go. And that's not necessarily the case, right? So they're, and they aren't going to come after all of your assets. I'll share with you some of that in a second, but it's important to understand that not all of your debts can be included in filing for bankruptcy. Okay.
Okay.
So then there's Chapter 13, which is sort of a reorganization, and it's kind of a negotiation where they will negotiate a payment plan that runs 3 to 5 years, something along that line, and will provide you with X amount of payment, and it goes forward that way, right? Yeah, it's just a little bit different in that they're not going to come after assets to pay off debts. Now, once you decide what you're doing here, there will be the petition is filed in court, and this will process an automatic stay, which means that the creditors aren't calling you anymore. This is where sort of you get, a stop of all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Halts any collections actions, and everything sort of is then put to the court in negotiation and the trustee to manage all of it for you.
So basically, you can stop paying on things at that time because
Yes.
it's all going to be done through the court, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
And there's what's called a creditors meeting, where you go to court, creditors go to court, and this doesn't happen every single time, but it's an opportunity for any negotiation to happen. You're going to have your attorney working on your behalf. You just have to be sitting there, that sort of thing. Now, with Chapter 7 and the disposition of assets, they will look at what assets they can to liquidate to pay your debts off. There are exclusions to that, which everybody is like, what are those? Right? So generally, and this is generally, I am not a bankruptcy attorney. I don't play one on TV. And generally, they will not come after your home unless it's, a huge home kind of thing. I mean, you will have an allowance as far as, maintaining your homestead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to come after your personal property, clothes, things like that. Furniture they may, or, super fancy designer purses they may, things like that to pay off creditors, but they're not going to take your kitchen appliances. Right.
Right.
Vehicle, that's negotiated. It depends on what the vehicle is, what it's worth, how much you owe on it, the whole thing, right? Their goal is not to leave you high and dry so you can't work and you can't function as a human in society, right? The goal is to settle things and have a fresh start. Sometimes they will look at retirement accounts or life insurance policies, but that's all sort of in the negotiation. They're not going to take your tools of the trade. So if you have, I don't know, if you're a Snap-on tool guy and you have a Snap-on truck, they're not taking your Snap-on tools in your truck because that's how you generate your living,
Right.
right? That's like, for me, they're not going to take my computer. They're not going to
Same
take,
thing for me, right? And my
right,
vehicle, right? Because I need my vehicle
right,
to do work.
correct. So they're
So,
not going, I mean, it's not like where they come in and these nasty people in black come in and take everything and sell it all, and right, it's not like that.
come in pitchforks.
It's all negotiated, right?
Right.
They're not going to come after your public benefits, Social Security, disability, unemployment, that sort of thing. They're not going to take that either. Now, there is the wild card, which is fully negotiated, right? If there's some asset that's worth something, but you don't, it's a value for resale, but you can negotiate, and sometimes there's the option for a wild card where you don't have to give that up.
Gotcha.
Now, bankruptcy and the problems with bankruptcy. I think we all probably know what they are, right? So there are all sorts of fees and costs to filing bankruptcy. There's court fees, attorney fees, all sorts of things, right? And it may not discharge all types of debts. It's not necessarily going to get rid of any tax debts or student loans or child support, that sort of thing. Those don't go away with a bankruptcy. Filings are public record. So everybody who's interested in knowing your business can know your business, right? So you want to avoid that as well.
Right.
It does have long-term financial ramifications if you file bankruptcy. You will have difficulty getting credit in the future. You will have, it may cause employment issues, all sorts of different things. Not to mention they may come after some of your assets to pay off the debts. So, there was a time, I guess maybe now I don't know if it was a long time ago, but in 2008, people remember, right?
Oh yeah. That
It
big
was
one.
not an unheard of thing for people to be filing for bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a thing where you just go done, right?
Yeah.
You are still responsible for some payments for things. It does have financial ramifications for the long term, and it does not just wash things clean. It does, if you really, really are in a situation where you need it, it does help clear the slate, so to speak, but it takes a long time to live out the ramifications of a bankruptcy.
And that's the part I think is, because I know several people who've had that. In fact, my husband had to do it because 2008, because 2008. And he's never had to censor or anything. Like, he's always been a good credit person. It just, things happen, right? And
They sure do.
And so sometimes that clean slate is like the best case scenario. And so just
Absolutely.
understanding what you're going to deal with, and understanding it's not the end of the world. For me, that's the big piece I want people to understand, because like, it seems so overwhelming when you're in debt, right? It just feels like
It
such
is. It's a
a
heavy
burden.
weight. It's
It
a
is.
weight.
And so sometimes that I never want people to look at bankruptcy as ever a bad thing. Like, it's what you need to do. It's whatever you need to do. And if bankruptcy is that thing, don't think of it like, oh my God, I'm a worthless person or anything like
No,
that.
absolutely not. I
Like,
just feel like people need to understand the longer term ramifications
for
of it,
sure.
and understand that it does not wipe away all of your debt like that,
Correct.
right? That's not how it goes.
Correct. It's just whatever you need at that time, but don't ever think, no matter what we're talking about here, don't ever think that you're like, we started out in the front of the video. You're like, you're not alone in
Yeah.
this. There's
Nope.
hundreds and thousands of people in your same spot, and some may choose bankruptcy, some may choose counseling, some may choose to do it on their own. So, but don't ever think any one of those decisions are awful. It's whatever you need to do, and you're going to it's only a season in your life, and you're going to get through it.
Absolutely. 100% agree. Yeah, and I'll throw in now because it sort of seems like a good time. I have on Tuesday, this coming up Tuesday, April 2nd, I have my debt detox class. It's 2 hours and it's really debt and credit. And I go into a lot more on really figuring out the long-term effects for you of the debt. How much is your current debt actually going to cost you over the duration of those loans, paying, the minimum payment? And credit card debt is a loan from the bank to you. It is $14.97 and it's 2 hours, and you get all the information that you need
Wow.
to figure out a strategy for you to pay down your debt, and manage it going forward. Also, how to negotiate with creditors, challenge errors on your credit report. There's form letters that you can use, all the things included, so that you, after those 2 hours, you are set to tackle your personal debt detox and then management strategy going forward. So that is, if you
Tuesday.
scan my little QR code there, it'll take you to my website, or just go to the website. It is on there, and you can
Her money
Her Money Empowered.
empowered.com.
Yeah,
And so if you just go to the website hermoneyempowered.com,
yep,
and just go there, the event is on there, correct?
it is.
All right,
Absolutely. It's
so
under courses. There's a tab at the top that says courses, and it's right there. You see it.
perfect. So make sure you check that out on Tuesday, this Tuesday, right?
This Tuesday, April 2nd. Yep.
All right, that's fantastic.
And you don't have to actually be on the Zoom for it. I
Okay,
will provide, for about a month, you get access to the video from
oh,
it. So
that's
there's that
perfect.
too.
That's perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. All right. Well, this is I
A lot.
I've learned a lot in this. I mean, I've been through stuff, so I knew some of it, but like I'm always getting nuggets from you when we do these videos. So I really appreciate all your knowledge that you give out to people for free. I mean, like this is just for free. So
Totally
thank
for
you.
free. Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
you have a in the comment, I believe we have the top 10 tips, correct?
Yes, it's a link. It's in the private chat. So
We will get that in the description and we will get that in the comments on all the platforms. So you'll have that top 10
yep.
tips.
And you just click on it, and you'll get the top 10 tips for credit management, or debt management going forward. So what are the things you can do to right the ship,
That's
so
perfect.
to speak?
All right. And then next week we are going to be talking about now that we're getting our debt cleared up and we're
Right? We're
going to
getting
have it
ready.
cleared up. We're gonna be ready to buy a house pretty soon because we're getting our debt cleared up. So now you want to buy a house. Now what? And then we're gonna go through all the kind of different things that you need to do to get ready to do that.
Absolutely.
So it's gonna be just a great topic. We just want to, like I said, continue to bring education to you each and every time we come on here. And hopefully you guys are getting nuggets, small nuggets, big nuggets, whatever, just nuggets, and that you can implement them in your everyday life. So there's my information, and I just appreciate you so much, Kate. Thank you so much.
Appreciate you too. Thank you.
All right.
Good times. Always a good conversation.
It is. It is. And remember, go to her website. And that was
hermoneyempowered.com.
go to her website, go to courses, click on the event, take care of that today and get that done because it's going to be vitally important for your future. All right. I hope
Absolutely.
you guys have a great day. Thanks, Kate.
You're welcome.